Welcome, everybody. Obviously, my name is not obviously, but my name is Dave Pike. I'm a business development executive here at IDC Worldsource, and happy to have Laura Madsen here with us today. Obviously, we're going to get into sort of the nuts and bolts of what it is, but obviously, anytime I have a chance to share the stage with Laura, I always jump at that opportunity. But this is something that's very near and dear to many of our clients who do have a cottage property that they would like to maintain and keep it within the family. And sometimes that's a bit of a challenge. And sometimes there's, but once we've had a chance to do a bit of a deep dive into this, we do find that there are assets that we can have redistributed into a different vehicle. And hey, life insurance, that's the business that we're in. So Laura is going to get into how we can utilize and leverage a life insurance policy to do that. So without further ado, Laura, I'm going to pass it all off to you, and I'm just going to sit back and learn a bunch.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks so much, Dave. So I'm going to get into Keep the Cottage in the family strategy presentation today. So glad that you could join us. This is a bit of a continuation from when Mike Stocks, our VP of Marketing, presented about a month ago. And the villain in this case was the capital gains taxes. So just want to touch on, keeping that cottage in the family. Most of the time, that next generation wants to take over the cottage, continue to keep that for further generations going forward. But the capital gains taxes are usually that roadblock that's in the way. And I'm going to just talk a few different ways of how to overcome that. And using life insurance as one of those strategies is usually one of the best concepts that's out there. So just a brief introduction about myself. Laura Madsen. I'm located in the Toronto GTA area. So this is a national webinar, obviously. So you may deal with a different wholesaler across, the different provinces, and they are all familiar with this strategy and are able to help you with any sort of case studies. And that as you maybe run into them or are going through your client base and locating those opportunities within your client base. This will provide a CE credit as long as you're on the full recording. I probably will be able to give you a little bit of your time back in the day. It's not quite an hour long, but if there's questions, I'll check the chat box at the end. And I'm actually going to turn off my camera just because my screen is sort of on a separate area. So rather than me not looking at you guys and chatting, I'm just going to slide that over. So keep in mind, this presentation, focuses on the cottage. I do find that this is a really hot topic because the cottages have such a sentimental component attached to the cottage. It's where family memories are made. It's usually where family gatherings are. In saying that, it's the same strategy that does apply to secondary properties or investment properties. It's just the cottage has that more emotional attachment versus this maybe another secondary property or that investment properties. So we do have a full agenda, but first off, just a housekeeping item. We need to show this disclaimer. This is just to let you know that the presentation reflects the views of Empire Life as of today's date. So just wanted to highlight that here very quickly, just for compliance reasons. Today's agenda will focus on the following. So first off, we are going to look at understanding the opportunity you have to work with your clients on what capital gains taxes are, and then how they apply to the family cottage specifically. Secondly, we are going to walk through some specific solutions that could be used to help cover off the capital gains tax on the family cottage. Thirdly, we are going to focus on keep the cottage in the family strategy and how this strategy can be effective in covering potential capital gains taxes. Fourth, we're going to walk through a case study that will compare the keep the cottage in the family strategy versus a non-registered investment and how that looks and the benefits of the insurance versus that non-reg investment. Then lastly, we're going to look at how we compare against the competition that's in the marketplace with some of those other PAR carriers. If your clients intend for their children to own the family cottage one day, they really do need to be aware. It may cost many times more what they originally paid for the property to transfer into their hands years down the road. So this is where we really want to look at where the opportunity is out in the marketplace, as well as where is the opportunity with your already existing client base. So do you have clients who own a cottage or whose parents own a cottage? Are they aware of the potential capital gains tax liability if they want to leave the cottage to their children? If they are aware of those capital gains, do they know they have options that they can explore to help cover the capital gains taxes at death? Underestimating the tax impact is a big error that parents make when transferring the family cottage to their children. And you would be really surprised of the amount of clients who are not aware of this tax implication when they do want to leave the cottage down to that next generation. So there's a number of issues, options, and emotions involved in that transfer of the family cottage. Particularly one that has been held in the family for decades, and then it's been enjoyed by multiple generations, right? So lots of times that those next generations are kind of expecting that to be passed down to them, but not realizing the actual tax impact. So underestimating that tax impact is a really big one. Where will the children get the money to pay for it? Before we get into different strategies that can be used to cover those capital gains taxes, I just want to highlight some of the property value increases that we've seen take place on cottages just across Canada in general. Now, I expect since there's been recent interest rate hikes, these percentages have probably decreased somewhat. But the point here that I want to make is that the value of these properties have still increased. Unless maybe they've bought during that hike, when we were seeing those cottage prices that were, we had all those bidding wars and the rest of that. But for those families who have had these cottages in their families for many years already, we are still seeing, significant hike in percentage increases in those property values. And these ones are based on Q1 2021 to Q1 2022. So, those interest rate hikes that we did have, within the past year are definitely going to affect the value properties a little bit in that sense. But again, the main point to highlight here is that there is that increase in property value across the board. So with those increases happening year over year, it's really important that your client understands the impact of those market fluctuations. So typically, most people who own real estate are happy when the value of their property increases because that will increase their overall net worth. But for those who own recreational properties, such as a cottage, the increase in property is directly tied to the amount of capital gains payable when they want to sell or transfer ownership to the next generation, whether that's, children or grandchildren. So as we explore those capital gains taxes further, We're going to focus on a real life example of a property in the Kawartha Lakes, which is in Ontario, which is a popular cottage area. But before we do, I just want to look at how capital gains taxes are calculated so that we can understand how the increase in value will increase the amount of tax payable to the CRA at time of, transfer of ownership or time of death. Before I go into this calculation as well, just a little bit of history. I love anything history related, but this is just going back on when capital gains were first introduced. And that was in 1972. Capital gains was first introduced at 50%. 1988, it increased to 66.67%. In 1990, it increased to 75%. And in 2000, it was reduced back to 50%. And now we're currently at 50%. So I just wanted to just give you an idea of what that history looked like, because I think a lot of people are unaware that there has been changes to that percentage. And when I first, saw the history of the capital gains tax, the 75% really surprised me. And I know I've even read a few articles recently where, some people have an opinion of, that capital gains tax being increased again. So we just don't know what that will look like in the future. So protecting your clients now is a really great idea. So the calculation itself is not overly complicated. The current cottage fair market value minus the adjusted cost base, so the original cost of the cottage, equals the capital gain. The capital gain is then multiplied by 50%. That gives you that taxable capital gain. And then the taxable capital gain is then multiplied by the client's marginal tax rate, and that would equal what the tax payable is to the CRA. So not an overly complicated calculation, but there can be some other things that go into this factor. But I'm just not going to go into, the weeds on that in this presentation today. We're just going to keep it quite simplified, just so that you understand the opportunity. Working with an accountant is always another great idea, especially if there's more than one property that's owned, or if there's been one of the properties as their principal residence for a while, and then then another property became their principal residence, along the way. It's really a good idea to work with that accountant in order to get that right calculation for the client. So just for illustrative purposes, this is just an example of a calculation. The cottage was purchased in 2015 for $525,000. And then the cottage value in July of 2022 is 1.35 million. The marginal tax rate that the client is in is 50%. And just to keep it nice and clean and easy, never used as the principal residence. So plugging in those numbers to the calculation I showed you on that previous slide, we're taking that fair market value of the cottage, that 1.349, and minusing the adjusted cost base, which was the original purchase price of $525, and that capital gain equals $824. Then that capital gain is multiplied by 50%, and that will give us the taxable capital gain of $412,000. And then multiplying that taxable capital gain by the client's marginal tax rate equals the income tax payable on this specific property, which is $206,000. So, nice, easy calculation, but there could be some other factors that can go into that depending on, the client situation. So we just want to explore some of the different options. Now that we understand the opportunity with that tax owing to the CRA at time of death or transfer of the property, we're going to just explore 4 different ways that your clients could look at covering the potential capital gains tax owing. It's important to note that this is not, a comprehensive list of options, but these are probably the 4 most possible solutions that your clients would consider to cover those potential capital gains tax. One of those being using cash, 2, using a sinking fund, 3, borrowing money, and 4, the life insurance strategy. We're going to just take a look at all of these different options and just explore them a little bit further. The first solution that could be used is to use cash on hand, right, to cover those capital gains tax owing. That cash would need to come from somewhere. So is it going to come from the estate value or the children who inherited the cottage? What happens when the estate value outside of the cottage isn't even enough, and then the children don't have access to enough money required to keep the cottage in the family? So I think that's a very common situation that happens where the estate doesn't have that value to cover off those capital gains. And then, younger families that have other expenses and that on the go just don't have some of that cash on hand. So if the goal is to keep the cottage in the family, it's really important to ensure that there's sufficient cash either in the estate or from the children to cover the capital gains tax liability. Secondly, your clients could set up a sinking fund to put towards the future capital gains tax liability. Simply put, a sinking fund is just an investment that's set up and then it's earmarked for a specific need. So in this case, the capital gains tax on the family cottage. So when looking at this option, it's really important to work with your clients so that they understand their own situation. Do they have room in their TFSA for this? Or would this be invested in a non-registered investment? Do they understand the potential tax implications of a non-reg investment? Is there even sufficient time and capital available to grow the investment enough to even reach that objective to covering off the capital gains tax? So there's a lot of prospecting questions and KYC questions that you need to do with your client in order to understand their situation and determine, what is the best solution for them to work with. Thirdly, the children who receive the cottage as an inheritance, they could look at taking out a loan to cover off those capital gains taxes owing. To do this, the children would need to qualify for that loan. So, would they qualify for that loan of, in that example, $206,000? There could be no guarantees at that time, depending on what their financial situation looks like at that time of death of the parents or ownership transfer. So do they qualify for that loan? And then with that loan, now there's the cost of interest that they're going to need to pay on top of the capital gains tax. So just a lot of different things to think about when looking at that transfer in that generational cottage. Lastly, your clients could look at using life insurance to cover the projected capital gains tax. For as little as 2 to 3% per year of the projected capital gain amount, your clients may be able to cover the full projected capital gains. Of course, individual needs are going to vary. So again, you need to work with your clients to determine that right insurance solution that fits their need and also fits their budget. In addition, this strategy can be done in two different ways. The parents can purchase a joint last to die policy on themselves, and they can pay the premium each year, or the children can purchase a joint last to die life insurance policy on the parents, and then the children can pay the premium each year. Depending on how many kids that involves, then there could be an option for, everyone to sort of split that cost. In both scenarios, the children would be the beneficiary, receive the death benefit tax-free, and then that would be used to cover the capital gains tax liability at that time. But regardless of how your client chooses to structure that policy, there are a lot of benefits to use the life insurance to cover the capital gain. So now that we've explored the different opportunities your clients have to cover that capital gains tax owing, let's explore the Keep the Cottage in the Family strategy and how the life insurance can be really beneficial for your clients. The Keep the Cottage in the Family strategy provides your clients the opportunity to redistribute some of their taxable investments into another asset class, so moving from a tax exposed environment over into a tax exempt environment. By purchasing a whole life insurance policy, they can enjoy tax deferred savings and tax free death benefit that can be used to preserve and also enhance the legacy that they leave when they pass away. Empire's whole life can offer, many benefits over a traditional non-registered investment. So let's compare a non-registered investment to the Keep the Cottage in the Family strategy using one of our Empire whole life insurance policies. So this information that you actually see plugged in up on this slide comes from all of the marketing material that's available that you can use to, promote this to your clients, have discussions with your clients. And I will touch on more of that marketing material at the end of the presentation as well. But for this specific comparison, there's that comparison between the insurance and then non-registered investment. So for the non-registered investment that you see over on the right-hand side, that's just making an annual investment deposit. All interest growth within the investment will be taxable, and then the client will be left with the net investment after tax. For the insurance policy or the Keep the Cottage in the Family strategy, your client makes their insurance premium. All growth in the policy is tax deferred, and then at death, the insurance amount is paid tax-free to the named beneficiary. So the benefits of using this strategy compared to the non-reg investment is that your clients receive tax deferred growth in the cash value and obviously that tax-free death benefit as well. So let's explore further the benefits that this strategy can offer your clients. In addition to the whole life insurance policy creating that large and immediate estate value, it also is going to offer possible creditor protection, that tax-free death benefit, and then reduce costs and time for estate settlement. So that's really important. I find that time for estate settlement, if all of this is getting caught up in probate and there's family arguments and all of that over it, if all of that planning is done before, it's going to just make this transition of the cottage to the kids much easier. So to access the tax deferred cash value, there are three different ways in which the client can do that. So policy loan, there's policy withdraw, or collateral assignment to another financial institution. Keep in mind, because all of the growth is tax deferred, there could be tax implications if the client's, accessing the cash value. Also, accessing the cash value could result in a reduced death benefit and could affect the strategy that's in place to cover those projected capital gains. But relative to an investment, using the strategy with whole life provides for maintenance-free management for the owner and anyone who maybe needs to step in if the owner is incapacitated. So there's no need to manage the policy like you would that non-registered investment. Once the policy is issued, as long as that premium is being paid, then it's going to just be taking care of itself. So now that we know the benefits of the strategy, how do you identify which clients this strategy is going to work best for? Typically, the keeping the cottage in the family strategy works best for clients who are over the age of 50. The strategy could be effective if, they own a cottage or second property, if they have investments that are taxable, if they're in a high tax bracket, they want to preserve the value of their estate from the effects of taxes, or they are just looking to equalize an inheritance between children. That can definitely be a possibility when it comes to cottages where one of the kids wants nothing to do with the cottage and, one of the other kids loves the family cottage. So, estate equalization can definitely come into play when it comes to, passing the cottage down. And another possibility or, another thing to look for within your clients is, are they looking for a stable investment option with tax deferred growth? So we're going to look at a case study. This one here is James and Ange, both 50 years old, healthy, don't smoke, have a family cottage that they've owned for years. Their goal is to ensure that the cottage is going to stay within their family when they pass away. They have 2 children. They want sufficient funds to be able to cover those capital gains taxes owing on the cottage, so that it's not going to erode the inheritance that they also want to pass down to their children. So they're looking for a strategy that provides them with increased flexibility in case their needs change in the future. So this is where you come in as the advisor. They're just unsure of what to do. And, that assistance from you is where you come in. So in meeting with the advisor, they uncover, some of the following information. They've maximized their RSP and TFSA contributions. So they're on track for that retirement at age 65. The potential capital gains tax liability that they've calculated with some assistance from their accountant is approximately $500,000 at age 85. So that potential life expectancy. They're currently in a 50% marginal tax rate and are paying, annual tax liability on investment growth within some of those non-registered investments. But they're losing almost half of their earnings in those non-registered investments based on the tax. They've paid off their mortgage and they have an additional $850 per month that was going towards the mortgage. And just reallocating those mortgage funds to the insurance would be a great opportunity. Or you could look at, reallocating some of those mortgage funds as well as reallocating some of that non-reg funds to the life insurance. By moving some from that non-reg, you're taking it from that tax exposed environment and you're moving it to a tax exempt environment. And again, it could just increase the the initial legacy that they're going to pass down to the kids, and cover off those capital gains. Just to keep it simple, we're just going to reallocate the the mortgage funds that they now have freed up due to the fact that the mortgage is now paid off. And we're just going to present these three options for them to consider. So option one, joint last to die 20 pay estate max policy with an initial insurance amount of $370,152 and monthly premium of $850. Option two is also a joint last to die using our estate max. So with our estate max plans, we're looking at long-term growth within those contracts. This one here has an initial face amount of $201, but utilizes the additional deposit option feature for a total monthly premium of $850. So cost is still the same, just a slightly different strategy by using the additional deposit option for option two. And then option three that we have here is that non-registered investment. So if just looking at what that would look like if they were using that sinking fund, and just invest and just putting that money in a non-reg investment. And we're looking here at moving that $850 deposit with an after-tax interest rate of 2.5%. So comparing the three different options, really easy to see that option three, which is that non-reg investment, doesn't even come close to meeting the client's objective of covering the projected capital gains tax of that $500,000. And that's at age 85, their life expectancy. But when looking at both options one and two, they both meet the client's objectives at the current dividend scale, and then the current dividend scale -2. So both are very suitable recommendations for the clients. But because option one purchases more insurance upfront, you see that for the first 11 years on the current dividend scale, the insurance amount is higher. But with option two, the client doesn't need the additional insurance amount upfront, and they care more about that long-term growth. So that's where option two, with using that ADO, it does really shine. And I just want to highlight too, in this particular case study, we did use a 20 pay, but where Empire does shine, and it's something that you may want to look at when working with your clients, is the 10 pay using the additional deposit option. Again, that's probably just going to come down to budget because you're going to be scrunching those payments up. But the total outlay that goes into the contract is fairly significant. So that can be, a way to motivate those clients to do the 10 pay versus the 20 pay, just by calculating out how much they're putting in overall into the policy. So just something I wanted to highlight in that particular case. So as you can see in the chart, at age 70, at age 85, option two is going to produce a higher death benefit than option one at the current dividend, and as well at current dividend -2. Outproducing the potential capital gain, and then further enhancing the client's estate for their children. I just wanted to look at the current dividend -2 for a second. I know that can seem maybe a little aggressive by looking at that -2 scenario, because we've been in such a low interest rate environment over the last many years. We're kind of seeing that back on the rise again a little bit. But remember, you're looking at this for a very long-term time frame. So there could be ups and downs in that marketplace where we're going to see a little bit of that flexibility. And this is just an extra bit of a safety net by showing that current dividend -2, just to show that the security of maintaining that strategy for the clients even down way further down the road. So when choosing between option 1 and option 2, there's several advantages on why to choose option 2. James and Ange are looking at that long-term value of the solution, which provides a 10% increase in the death benefit at age 85, compared to the option 1 we showed. And then higher cash values throughout the life of the policy, with over 100% more cash value at year 10. So in addition to the higher values, option 2 also provides James and Ange increased payment flexibility. So since only the base premiums required, this way, if they have some needs that change down the road, they could adjust the amount they're paying within the policy by canceling the additional deposit option. And they could potentially put that on a premium offset as well, and have that that work for them internally within the policy. But if James and Ange also want to enhance the estate even further, and they want to continue making additional deposits, they can even do that past the 20 years, and that would really enhance their estate even further. So in conclusion, the Keep the Cottage in the Family strategy provides James and Ange, with the following. A solution that outperforms the non-registered investment. That was very significant and very clear to see. Also, tax deferred growth with increased early cash values compared to option 1. Long-term tax-free death benefit that's going to meet their objectives, even when looking at that -2 scenario. The premium flexibility is there with the additional deposit option. If they choose to go that route, the option 1 was still a viable option. And then those guaranteed limited payments, whether that be the 10 pay, the 20 pay, just depending on what they are what the client is looking for. So I just want to change focus and look at how our Estate Max whole life compares to some of the others in the industry. This is just comparing to 2 other companies, well-known companies, well-known other PAR companies, but using the same parameters that we looked at in option 1 case study. So that's the one without the additional deposit option. Empire provides the most guaranteed insurance upfront compared to the other companies. If we're comparing, the 3 companies' total death benefit at age 85, you can see Empire is still very competitive. We're not number 1. Company A is 760, Company B is 769, and Empire's at 729. But we're still within that vicinity. And this is just looking at the current dividend scale, relative to the case study that we just reviewed. Now, what I want to highlight again is when projecting out those values on that -2 dividend scale, Empire outperforms those key competitors and still meets the long-term objectives of James and Ange. So in this scenario, the other companies are not meeting that long-term objective of having enough to cover the capital gains tax of 504 at their age 85. And this is at that -2 dividend scale. So just a bit of a safety net in there, and can avoid having some complicated conversations down the road if it goes that way. So using option 2 from the case study, using the maximum ADO comparison with each company, for a total of 850, as you can see, when you add that ADO into the comparison, Empire has the highest initial insurance amount. It maintains that advantage for the first 31 years of the policy, at age 85, we are a little bit behind, but again, we're still competitive and there with the other companies with a projected value of 802. So it's just important to highlight that using that max ADO with Empire really provides a nice increase in death benefit at age 85 compared to not using the additional deposit option. And now that we've compared ADO at the current dividend scale, of course, we just take a look at that -2 solution again. So when projecting out values on the -2 dividend scale, both Empire scenarios outperform the key competitors, and that's with the ADO and without the ADO. So it still meets those long-term objectives for James and Ange from the case study. So it's clear to see through some of these examples that Empire provides that competitive long-term death benefit growth at our current dividend scale, and then also the alternate of -2. So, we do have very competitive guarantees that are within the products, and those are also one of the key components that you should be looking at with your clients as well when you're doing those comparisons. So just to help you discuss this strategy with your clients, we have developed several materials to help support you. So we've developed the Keep the Cottage in the Family advisor and a client marketing piece for you to use. Both pieces use the same case study, that we reviewed in today's presentation. In addition, we have also created a video that you can share with your clients on social media, just talking about the potential of capital gains on the cottage. Our tax and estate planning team, they have also created a webinar very similar to this one, but a little bit more geared to the clients. And you have the opportunity to take advantage of that if you wanted to get a group of your clients together that have cottages, and one of our tax and estate planning people would do that webinar, and you would co-host that with one of our tax and estate planning people. So if you're interested in that, then definitely reach out to the wholesaler that's in your area. You can also team up with some of your other fellow advisor colleagues. If you only have a small portion of clients that maybe fit into this, and same with a few other advisors, if you guys wanted to combine that together, then that's something that can also be done, and one of our tax people can present that. There's been marketing emails that have gone out with a lot of this information already in it, direct from our marketing department. I know for myself, I've also redistributed this material to our to my territory. So for the advisors on the line right now that are in my territory, you should have received this from me directly as well. So it's a great way to reach out and have the conversation with your clients. This is our tax team, our tax, retirement, and estate planning team. And, we are willing to help with any type of client scenarios that might be a little bit more complex. If we need to involve our tax and estate planning team over and above the wholesaler support, then we are happy to do that. We can do, a virtual call where we can have some discussions around the client situation, and hopefully help you in presenting that to the client to have a successful meeting with them. So we have Peter, Aquia, and Alex, and they're based all across Canada. Peter and Aquia are mainly in Ontario. They're based out of Ontario, but they do go to BC quite often and the Atlantic. And Alex is mainly in the Quebec area. So that is the tax and estate planning team who you've probably seen within some webinars and that before. So that concludes today's presentation. So thank you very much for attending. We really appreciate the business that you provide to Empire. That certainly does not go unnoticed. And we look forward to, maybe having some conversations with regards to this particular strategy in general. All right.
Great. Well, hey, that was excellent. As always, you remind me of that I know what I don't know. And I always, that's always my biggest takeaway whenever we have Laura with us. So very informative. Thank you for presenting, and thank you for everybody that attended today's session. Always nice having you guys here. And obviously this is the alternative to being in person, but this is about the best that we can get at certain times. So anyway, thank you everybody for joining, and feel free to reach out to myself or of course Laura, or any one of your BDEs nationally or the sales consultants for Empire Life.
All right. Thanks so much, Dave, for having me.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Yeah. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye now.